Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your latest instalment of the Gersnet Weekly Podcast, hosted by myself, Craig Gray. It's Sunday the 28th of May, and the season's over. Thank God for that. Guys, just before we get started, this is obviously the independent Rangers podcast made for fans, by fans, and all content is free. You can get us over at www.gersnet.co.uk, where you can see a website that's just been updated. Lots of good stuff over there, lots of articles and content for you to get in about, and obviously on Twitter at Gersnet Online. Also just want to give us a little message from our sponsors. That's Forest Precision Engineering. They're a subcontract Glasgow based engineering company. They've been a big commercial supporter of Rangers for many years, and we're delighted that they're backing our podcast. You can get them over at www.forestprecisioneng.com. And you can also visit the Forest Precision Executive Lounge, a stunning new hospitality area within the historic main stand. For information on how to book this unique and intimate space, you can email the club via hospitality@rangers.co.uk. So, that's me done part of the introductions for myself and our sponsors. Now it's time to introduce my guest for this evening. First up, it's Mr. Gary Valentine. Gary, how you doing? Not been on with you for a while.
I can't remember the last time I was on. I think it was after the Celtic League game, the away game. It's been quite a while.
Ah, well, didn't want to talk about that again tonight, but here we are. Thanks very much. And joining us as well, Mr. Brian Archer. Brian, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. Just glad the season's over and looking forward to the Newcastle friendly already.
Yes, I know. And by the way, Rangers, let's get some friendlies announced in the north of England, probably before the Newcastle friendly. That would be good. I've got a wee end of season bash in Blackpool next month. It would be good to go back there.
I want to see training pictures from a training camp in Portugal. I want to hear interviews from players saying that they're the fittest they've ever been.
Aye.
I want to see players vomiting at the side of the pitch because of how much workout Michael Beale's putting them through. I want to see all the usual pre-season stuff we get. I'm ready for it already.
As long as it's no Dubai, we're going to, because we don't want to be cursed. We all know what happens when you go to Dubai during either a summer pre-season or a winter pre-season. But let's not talk about that. Gary, I'll start with you. Yesterday, obviously, St Mirren 0, Rangers 3. I suppose it's been actually quite a decent end to the season. 4 wins out of 5 in our split fixtures. Hearts stopped us on Wednesday night, making it 5 out of 5. I was quite surprised with the team. It was probably the strongest it could be given the circumstances, but a good way to finish the season anyway, getting the 3 points and another clean sheet for Robbie McCrory.
That's it. They ticked a lot of boxes for us. The clean sheet which McCrory would be wanting. They managed to introduce some of the fringe players. Arfield came on and got his final hurrah as well. So yeah, it was a end of season game. Didn't mean nothing, but we went there, we're professional about it. And I wouldn't imagine the managers learned anything or about what's happening. It's just going to happen anyway. But yeah, good win. That's pretty much it.
I suppose you take it. Obviously, none of us were able to watch the game as it wasn't being broadcast live in Sky or anything like that. So we just had to do with the tweet updates for the Rangers Twitter. Absolutely none of us went on a holiday, if you know what I mean. Brian, what was your thoughts on the game yesterday? As Gary mentioned there, kind of a routine win, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was just a nice, comfortable win. Typical kind of end of season game when there's nothing really at stake. A few good performances though, I've got to say. I'm sure we'll come on to them, but yeah, so that was nice to see. It was nice to see the players not just going through the motions. They did seem to, at least put in the required effort and kind of want to finish the season on a high. So that was good. I think too often when you see teams playing their last game and they know they've got nothing to play for, you tend to find players just going through the motions and wanting to get it over with. But it was good to see them actually, put in the shift that they needed to and get the win in the end.
No, absolutely. And one player that we're going to talk about who was my man of the match anyway. I don't know if he's a Gersnet man of the match because I'm not actually watching on YouTube. I can just see the Zoom, so we don't get to see the amazing graphics that you guys do at home. But for me, Fashion Sakala, the guy that scored 2 goals, right before he scored, Gary had like a typical Fashion moment where he went in a great run and blazed it over the bar. And then it's a great pass from Rivdan. Easy for me to say. I'm just going to call him Yilmaz for now on because that's easier. A good pass for Yilmaz to put it through to Sakala, who obviously cut inside and gets a wee bit fortuitous with it. the deflection off the St Mirren defender, but it was 1-0 and it was another good showing from him, wasn't it?
Yeah, so there's one thing you can't knock him for, is that he keeps going back and back and back. No matter how many chances he misses or sitters he misses, he's always there, and he's always he's not scared to take a shot at goal, and it's a rarity because in this squad, because I think a lot of them at times been scared to take a shot or take a chance or do something, and they're worried that the fans will get on their back, but he just keeps going time after time, and then yesterday's rewarded with 2 goals. I think Sakala's he's been one of the players for me that he's been getting kept. I'm wanting rid of him. Well, keeper could do a job, but I think if you look at the big picture from him, his numbers are really impressive. And there was all the statisticians earlier were given, was it 15 goals he's been involved in for November. Fabio came back in, and that's like one of the highest in your team. So I think he is what he is, but he's never going to be a first choice player. But I think he's going to be a cracking squad player, certainly for against the games like a St Mirren, like a Motherwell. I think he's a good option to have.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that, Gary. And the one that you mentioned there on numbers, he is in terms of like goals and assists. He's been the highest contributor since Beals came back. So he started really well when Beal came back. Obviously scored against Hibs, scored up at Aberdeen as well. And you know he blows hot and cold. We know what Fashion Sakala's like. But one guy, this might be a weird comparison, but I would compare him maybe to Alfredo Morelos in the sense of the frustration part. I think we get frustrated at them for completely different reasons. For Morelos, it's about maybe his discipline and his attitude. Sakala doesn't lack that. It's maybe just his ability at times that you get frustrated with. But see, to be honest, I think I would rather be questioning or be angry at a player for maybe not having the ability than I would for not making the effort. I think for me, that's something that, well, it just seemed this season that guys like Morelos have just chucked it in. And one thing, Brian, that you can't level with Sakala is the fact that, he does give it his all every game and he does try his hardest.
Yeah, you definitely couldn't accuse him of chucking it. As Gary says, no matter how many, times he misses a chance or how many times we get frustrated with him, he just keeps coming back. And he's always got that smile on his face. You can imagine him being actually quite a good character to have around the dressing room in terms of that attitude that he seems to have, and just never letting anything get him down in terms of the criticism that he's had over the season. So I certainly wouldn't be against keeping him for next season. I think for me it very much depends on the offers that we get, if we get any. I could see that if we get offers of in the region of £5 million, I could see a potential possibility that they look at it and say that's a good bit of business for someone that we signed for nothing. Which I think we need to remember. His numbers this season were better than Ryan Kent, and Ryan Kent was a £7 million signing. Fashion Sakala we signed on a free. So I think in that context you've got to say that he's had a pretty impressive season by those kind of standards. So for me, I wouldn't be against keeping him, but equally if we get the right offer, we also can see the possibility that he's sold as well.
Yeah, that is obviously a possibility, and we'll wait to see if people are going to be interested in him over the summer. I mean, it is a strange one with Sakala. The Sakala conundrum, as many people will call it. He blows hot and cold, but for me, I think he's a really great option to have. You're going to need players like that throughout the course of a season. He does bring something different, and we've often used the word chaos surrounding Fashion Sakala, in that he doesn't quite know what he's going to do, but again, that could actually be a positive for us, because if we don't know what he's going to do, then how the hell are the opposition going to know what he's going to do as well? So he can kind of thrive off that, and I think he's definitely a good option to have for certain scenarios. And at the end of the day, I do think a lot of people maybe don't realise that, football isn't what it was, 20 odd years ago, where, it's maybe a core group of 13 or 14 players that are playing, 30 odd games a season. You're playing, high 50s, early 60 games a season. That's before international football. That's before all your friendlies, which, by the way, are now played at a pretty high pace and high standard as well. Qualifiers, there's no really many breaks for football players in, in the calendar. Obviously, I would imagine the players stopped yesterday. They'll go away for a few weeks and go on their holidays and do whatever, and then they'll be back. They'll be back pre-season training, and obviously we've got the first qualifiers for the Champions League at the beginning of August as well, which will hopefully be good. But no, I like Sakala, and I definitely hope he's going to be here next year. But it is an interesting point you make there, Brian, about possible transfers, because I think just with the situation that we find ourselves in as a club in Scotland, every player's going to have a price, and I suppose if you get offered, you were saying 5 million, we won't quote that as what he's worth. You were just throwing a figure out there. If we could get that for him, I can definitely see the point in selling him, but we'll need to wait and see what happens. Gary, one guy that we certainly never signed in a free, signed for a good few quid last summer was Yilmaz. He's played all 5 games during the split. He's getting a run in the team now for the first time, since he's been at Rangers. Obviously, he's had injury issues and whatnot. I really like him. He's got a great attitude. I think you can tell with his social media posts as well that he actually enjoys being in Glasgow and whatnot. There seem to be reports that he maybe wasn't settled, but he does seem to, take a lot of pride in playing for Rangers when you see his posts. And, he's the one thing that he maybe lacks is that delivery. But like we said, for that first goal yesterday, he puts in that ball to Sakala to go and get the goal. What do you make of his performance yesterday, and his Rangers career so far and moving forward into next season, Gary?
I think he's been slowly getting more impressive per game. I think the problem with Ridvan is probably the same as a few of the guys. They've just never had a run of games. Because of injuries and whatever, it's been stop-start. But he's had a run of games. He's looked impressive. Before, you maybe thought Barisic would be their first choice left back maybe going into next season, if not looking for somebody else. As you say, there was a paper talk about him going back to Turkey and things like that. But he offers something different to Barisic. That's what I quite like about him. And before, we were kind of like there was symmetry. We're both fullbacks doing the same thing, so I'd imagine it'd be quite an easy thing to defend against. But if you've got one fullback who likes to go inside, another fullback who likes to go out wide, and it must be, as you said earlier, like chaos. It must be quite a hard thing to follow. So it gives us a good option. So you'd imagine that if we can keep him, it was big money. I'm sure if an offer came in that would get us our money back, they'd maybe think about it. But if we were to keep him and bring in another fullback that gives us a different option, I think it'd be a player worth keeping. But like a lot of them, I think they're going to be a completely different players once they get a full pre-season into them. And as Brian said, get the legs ran off them, get them back to fitness, and hopefully a lot of the players will go on and to another level.
You take them up the sand dunes all through the summer. That'll be funny. Gary, what's your thoughts on Borna Barisic? He's obviously got a year left in his deal. Is he someone that you'd be looking to keep, sell, maybe even offer a new contract?
I certainly wouldn't offer him a new contract. Borna Barisic is a funny one with me. He's obviously got his positives. He's got some left foot and everything. He is consistent. I still think he goes disappears in games, especially at Parkhead. I don't know. It must be 31 or something. Am I right in saying that?
Don't know if he's quite as old as that. I think he's 29 or 30. I'll give it a wee check, and I'll update people in 2 seconds. Born 92, so he's 31 this year.
I certainly think if an offer came in for him, like you could shake his hand and say you've had a decent Rangers career. It has had ups and downs, but I'm just in the mindset of a lot of these players that they've ran their race.
Yeah,
I'd imagine he'd be on big money as well. If we didn't pay that much for him, was it £2 million we paid for him?
Something like that, yeah.
If you can move him on, get somebody else in, use his wages a bit different. And the thing is, Ridvan will be on decent money as well for the fee we paid for him. So can you afford to have higher paid players in the same position. Yeah, I'd move him on if it was me, but I don't know. I'll trust Beale's judgment on that one.
And that's what we're here for. We're all entitled to their opinions. Brian, same question to you. Firstly about Yilmaz. What you made of his performances the last sort of few weeks, and where do you see him going into next season, mate?
Yilmaz, I think he's been very impressive. I think he'll be our starting left back next season, assuming we don't get an offer for him in the summer that we decide that we can't turn down. So I think he'll be our starting left back next season, rightly so. I like the variation he brings to our play. Barisic was quite one-dimensional in the sense that his only thought was to, get the ball on the left-hand side and whip into the box. Now, don't get me wrong, he whipped some great balls into the box, to be fair to him. But Yilmaz has got a bit different options and different kind of variations to his plays. I think that gives us something different when we're attacking down that side, which can only be a positive. So I would definitely be wanting to hang on to him, unless, as I guess with all the players at Rangers, every player's got their price. So if we get an offer that we just feel we can't turn down, then I guess they would let him go. But I'd be all for keeping him and just seeing what he can do with a full season as our starting left back, particularly given that he'll have a full pre-season under his belt this time and hopefully steer clear of injuries. And in terms of Barisic, I'd probably be looking to move him on. I don't think he's going to be the type of player that will be happy sitting on a bench for the majority of the season. I think he'll want to play. So I'd be looking to move him on and try and get some kind of money back for him. We've probably had our money's worth out of him anyway. If it was the £2 million we paid for him, I think there's a fair argument there to say that we've had £2 million worth of value out of him in terms of what he's given us over the years that he's been here. And after that first season, I don't think many fans would have expected him to stay for as long as he has done. So I think he's been a very good servant, and I would happily, shake his hand and let him move on.
No, he has been a good servant. I think you've made a good point there, Brian, in terms of getting your money's worth. He cost £2 million. We've had 5 seasons out of him. What's that? About $400,000 a season before wages. It's pretty good considering the numbers that he gets and whatnot. I'm torn on Barisic, to be honest. I actually thought at first that in terms of Yilmaz that Beale just didn't fancy him because he wasn't playing him for a wee while. Obviously he's played in the last 5 games, and he's kind of done the same with Matondo, who I also felt that Beale didn't fancy. But I'm kind of in this wee sort of thinking mode where I'm going, on one hand, maybe he does fancy them, and then on the other hand, maybe he's just playing them in these sort of meaningless games, quote unquote, to get them out in the short window to show clubs that they're still here, they're still alive. We can sell them. So I don't know. I really don't know going into next season. Obviously, we'll find out soon enough. One thing I will say though is I found it a bit strange that Barisic came on for Yilmaz yesterday. I don't know, as if maybe that was Beale giving him sort of one last wee outing as a Rangers player. Obviously the place where his Rangers career kicked off when he scored that free kick in Paisley a few seasons ago. So I found that a bit weird because he never mentioned an injury to Yilmaz afterwards or anything like that. So I don't know. The Union Bears were also chanting his name a lot. See, when the players were doing like the walk around the pitch and what have you after the Hearts game. Obviously Barisic isn't one of the players confirmed to be leaving, but he was the only guy out with the 5 players that were leaving that was getting sung about, which, I don't know. I just think that, and maybe Beale bringing him on yesterday, it might point to him leaving in the summer, but I don't know. That's just me, putting 2 and 2 together, and who knows, maybe I get 4, maybe I get 5, but we'll find out soon enough.
I was going to say as well, it's not against the realms of possibility that we could get £2 million for Borna Barisic. The year remaining on his deal and breaking even with him. He's a sellable asset. He's an international footballer. I dare say if we were looking to move him on, he wouldn't be short of clubs that would be interested in him, because as we've all kind of said, he's got his good points. I think it'd definitely be a player we could move on to free up some money if we needed it.
No, I think you're right, Gary. I mean, I think him and Lundstram are in quite similar situations where, they've got a year left in their contracts now. Right now, I would be quite happy for them to stay for next season as, squad players, because I think they both can contribute something. And then maybe at the end of next season, you review their situation. I don't mind that. But at the same time, if you're getting offered money for these guys who are big earners, with a year left in their contract that you can reinvest in fresh blood coming in, I don't think the club's in a position to turn that down. And I think both Barisic and Lundstrom are in similar positions there. But Gary, obviously, that win yesterday, it means that since Beales came in, Rangers on, the games played with that, are actually top of the league since Beales came in. I can see all your 12-year-old Celtic fans, with a picture of Jota in their Twitter profiles going, oh, what a trophy for Rangers in their mum's bedroom and what have you. But, it's positive heading into next season. We're not stupid here. We know that, this season it doesn't mean anything, but Beale hasn't done a bad job in the league anyway. When you look at the numbers, we've lost, 2 games. One of the games that we've lost, we shouldn't have lost at Parkhead because of that ridiculous decision involving Morelos' goal. The time the Aberdeen game comes around, well, look, Celtic fans say it, so I'll say it. If them getting beaten games where the league's done is a meaningless game, there is getting beat at Pittodrie when the league's done is also a meaningless game, so you can't count that either. So, do you think that's a positive heading into next season, showing that, Beale can sort of, use the term, go toe-to-toe with Celtic anyway?
Well, see, just purely looking on the big picture, when Beale came in, I think 90%, 95% of Rangers fans would have said that the league was over in November.
Yeah.
All he could have targeted was to cut that gap.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if the league was over, if we're still going, he's managed to do that. So that's a plus. We've managed to beat Celtic. That's another plus. If we drew at Ibrox there and went into next season, still no way a win against Celtic, that's more pressure again. But we've got that. Going with that as well, just obviously Celtic are the team with the kind of challenge. There's not been any drubbings under Beale. It's been games with odd goal, games that we've shot ourselves in the foot, as usual, against Celtic. So there's certainly positives there. The only negative is probably the League Cup final. I felt it kind of maybe went with the wrong team. I don't know what the fitness was of the players at that time. But other than that, I think Beale's done as much as he can do with that squad of players. And a lot of folk were kind of slating him for he was saying certain things and contradicting himself. I think he's done well to kind of keep that squad ticking along and just get that, rinse that last wee bit out of them before the changes happened in the summer. And I'll applaud him for that, because if you look at some of the performances before he came in, that team was proper broken. And he's managed to not saying turn it around, but he's managed to get a tune at them anyway. And I would say guys like maybe Suter, Ridvan, guys like that, he's possibly saved their careers, because the way it was going, guys would have just said, get rid of them all. But you've got boys there that are actually lifted it a wee bit. I'd say even Lundstrom in that as well. I think he's played well the last few games. But then, is it one of them to play well when it's meaningless? When it comes to the big games and they maybe crumble a wee bit. So I'm positive for the summer, but I think I don't think Beale could have done much more than what he's done. There's always a fine margins. With the fine margins, we could have been looking at a cup double.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, look, at the end of the day, 2 years in a row now in terms of the league, the games against Celtic have cost us. If we'd beaten Celtic, we would have won the league. It's quite simple. The last 2 seasons, which, to be fair, actually is kind of where Rangers and Celtic should be year in, year out. And although the last 2 years, Celtic have wrapped up the league with a couple of games to go, the fact that it is solely down to the Old Firm games does show, a level of competitiveness that I've not seen in Scottish football for the best part of a decade anyway. But I think I made a few good points there, Gary. I mean, but Beale's had 5 games against Celtic. He's obviously only won one of them, but I would give him pass marks in terms of setting teams up, tactics, etc. in 4 of those 5. Like you said, the League Cup final, I think he made a mistake, but you're human, you're going to make mistakes. Do you know what I mean? He was still young in the job at that point. He still is just now, but You know,
I think you've got to look at the bigger picture as well. Like I don't think Beale's a stupid guy. I think he's came in November. I'd be certain that they had all these talks that they're about to implement in November. We know he was watching Rangers before he even got the job. He's obviously said straight away this is going to happen, and he's used all this time to get things in place, try things, see if players had the heart. Kamara, for example, he spoke him up. Never seen him for months other than that cameo the other night. He's came in with a plan, and it seems like it's just bit by bit he's went through that full season. For November, doing wee bits and bobs, wee tweaks here. He changed it slightly yesterday as well. He said he played the forwards wider. He's saying there's got to be more changes again next season. So it's bit by bit he's made wee changes and tried different things, and obviously seen what he could get out of certain players. And as I say,
I think either way, with guys like this, we're either going to get a decent transfer fee for them in the summer, maybe not money back, but we'll certainly recoup a fair amount of it, or we'll get a good player there. So either way, that is a positive for us. Do you know what I mean? Whereas beforehand, they were just going to be out in the wilderness anyway, and you can't have that. You can't have guys, sitting on the bench or not even in the squad that's on 20 plus grand a week that have cost millions and millions of pounds. So I think he's gotten, as you say, Gary, the best out of the players as he probably could have got. And I actually never really thought about that there, the whole sort of premise of working in the background and whatnot, which is quite interesting, because the more I think about it, the more that I think he has been doing that. Somebody like Todd Cantwell, I mean, it seemed that he came out of the blue, but how long did Beale have his eye on him for? Or did Beale maybe know about his situation at Norwich? You would imagine that he would, given his contacts down there and working in that same league with QPR, and then he goes, oh well, there's a player that I know I can get the best out of, and he has so far. So no, it's definitely pointing in the right directions going into next season. Brian, the recruitment's going to be the big thing, obviously, heading into the summer, and I know we've shot ourselves in the foot against Celtic a good number of times this season with unforced errors, but the manager, for me, as I say, has gotten it wrong 20% of the time. I think if you're getting it right tactically 80% of the time against Celtic, that's pretty good. And you need to remember that the players that are making these unforced errors and individual mistakes, they're not going to be here next season. So, I think we're in for a good season next season. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I've got total confidence in Beale. I've no doubt that he's, as a coach, he's more than capable of going toe-to-toe with Celtic in terms of tactically and setting up the team. And I think once he's got his group of players together, we've got a full pre-season under the belts, I don't see why we can't get a top spot back. I know I think when you listen to people outside talk about how dominant Celtic have been, it can seem like a mammoth task, but up here, 20-point swings can happen in the course of the summer. We've seen it ourselves after 55. We all thought we were potentially set for a couple of years of winning the league, and then, what happened across the road happened, and they kind of got themselves together, and that 20-point lead that we had for the previous year vanished. So for me, it's absolutely possible that we can have a good season next season and get the league back. And confidence in Beale in terms of recruitment, he seems to know what he wants in terms of a player. I like how he's all about, I want to sit down with a player and look into their eye and really see that they want to come and play for Rangers. You can clearly see from Todd Cantwell that he wanted to come and play for Rangers. He's totally buying into the club and everything we're about, and you can see just in his attitude on the pitch that he loves being here, and I think he would love nothing more than to win some silverware with Rangers. So I've got total faith in Beale in terms of the players that he's bringing in. Just on your point that you made, Craig, about what's happening in the background, I think Kieran Dill had said that he spoke to Michael Beale first about the move about 2 months ago. So clearly he is doing a lot of things in the background that we're not necessarily seeing, but there's conversations happening with players. Just like Michael Beale said, to be honest, he's been quite open. He's been meeting players since they arrived. He's not been shy in telling us in press conferences that he's been away here, there and everywhere meeting players. So that's good to hear. And yeah, I think the board seem to back him as well, which is always good. He's obviously been here before, so he knows the kind of people higher up in terms of the board and new CEO and things like that. So he's already got good relationships with them. So that's all positive. So yeah, I'm really just totally excited for getting the pre-season started and watching some new signings.
No, absolutely. And Kieran Dowell's going to be an interesting one. He's someone who I think, when I say I'm not convinced by him, that probably sounds really bad. I think he has a decent player. He's a good age. He probably fits the profile. I don't think he's as talented as Tillman or Hadji, but like I mentioned with Sakala earlier, you still need players like this to build a decent squad around to try and get you through the course of a 55, 60 plus game season. For us anyway, our target in Europe as well is playing European football after Christmas, whether that's in the Champions League, well, if only, or the Europa League or whatever. We need to be trying to play European football post-Christmas every single year. That's got to be the aim. And you've got to bring in guys to do a job. One thing about Bill that I really like as well is his passion for Rangers. Like Bill, it's not that Bill wants to be here, it's Bill wants to be here. He clearly done a lot and not back a lot just to get through that front door at Ibrox. And, you can tell that when he was here the first time round, the whole club just gripped him in a special way. And the fact that Bill, I've got no doubt that he probably was, a wee bit, pushy about trying to get the job and whatnot. But I like that because that means that he wants to be here. You can't see him doing a Brendan Rodgers or a Steven Gerrard style U-turn in a couple of years' time if things are going well, and then he's patching in the middle of the season, despite what QPR fans will probably tell you anyway. But, I just think the guy's passion, not just for Rangers, but the guy's passion for football as well, he loves what he does. And, it is weird because you seen the Celtic manager have a wee go at him yesterday with his comments and whatnot, and it's just like, I get the whole partisan nature of Scottish football and all that, and maybe people having a wee joke, but genuinely Michael Beale does come across, and I'll say this in a personal note and dealing with him at press conferences and whatnot, is just a genuinely nice, likeable guy. Probably does talk a lot, but do you know what? Who cares? If that's the most you can accuse somebody of doing is talking a lot, it's not the worst thing in the world, do you know what I mean? I think people are maybe a wee bit confused by some of the things that he says, which is fair enough, but you'll learn that in time. He's a young coach, and, he's got a clear vision and a clear view of what he wants to do. And Brian, we mentioned that their recruitment, looking ahead to next season, he's got his recruitment right so far, 100%. Really, we're asking him, can't ask him to do any more. We've obviously brought in Dowell. What positions for you are the ones that need strengthened the most?
Taking back on your previous point about you, one of the other things I would do is I think he's clearly relishing the challenge of, right now we're the underdogs, and I think he's relishing the challenge of taking us where he wants us to take us to, and being the one to kind of topple Celtic and their, dominance that everyone's kind of perceived that they've got going on just now. So I think he's got, I don't know, there's something about him when he speaks about next season. He seems to really be just relishing that opportunity for him to be the one and his team to be the one to kind of get us back on top. And I think he's kind of that single focused mindset of, we're going to win the league next season. It's the same that when Defoe spoke about the 55 season, he spoke about how everyone's mindset was totally focused on 55. This season we're doing it. Nothing's going to stop us. And I think Michael Beale's the type of manager that can instill that mindset into this new squad that we're going to have going into next season. So yeah, I'm totally looking forward to it. And I think in terms of where we need to strengthen, to be honest, I think we probably need bodies in all over the pitch. But for me, it's less about numbers for me and more about the quality. For me, I think we need players of similar quality if we can get them to Raskin and Cantwell. Now, obviously, had it not been for their situations in terms of they were out of contract this summer anyway, we possibly wouldn't have been able, they may have been out of our reach in terms of transfer fees and possibly wages. But if we could pull off another couple of those kind of signings where it's players that have got something to prove, Canwell would kind of fallen away at Norwich. I think he was once rated at like £50 million. I think Man U were rumoured to be interested way back when Norwich won the Premier League and he was doing really well. But he came to Rangers having had not much football and falling out of favour at Norwich United. You can tell he's got something to prove, and I think that's only benefiting us. And I think the same way with Raskin, he'd be frozen out at Standard Liège, and I think he's come here with something to prove. He's kind of admitted himself that Rangers is a bit of a stepping stone, and I'm kind of okay with that. If that means that he does really well for us and he picks up a load of medals, and then we send them on his way, having made a profit on him, I'm totally fine with that, to be honest. In terms of positions to prioritise, we definitely need central midfielder, at least one, maybe two for me, kind of dynamic, creative central midfielders. We need forwards, we need players that get numbers. For all the good work that we've seen Brian Kent do over his time here, his numbers for me were always the kind of bit that let him down in terms of his goals and assists. He never scored enough goals for me. For me, players that play in those wide positions for Rangers, they need to be scoring goals. They need to be contributing 10 to 15 goals a season. I don't think we ever got that from Kent. So for me, in the forward areas, we need to add goals. Defensively, I think it's more about cover. For me, Goldson and Suter should be our starting two centre-halves next season. When fit, I know everyone's still got their injury concerns about Suter, but for me, since he's came back in, he's been an absolute colossus these last couple of games. Particularly when Goldson's not actually been there, he's kind of taking the leadership role in terms of marshalling that back four when playing next to Leon King and John Lundstrom, who's not a natural centre-back. I think for defence, we probably just need cover, and I think we definitely need a goalkeeper. I said this in a previous part, I wouldn't be totally adverse to seeing Robbie McCrory being given the number one and maybe saving. So I know we're rumoured to be in for Jack Butland. I'm guessing he would command quite a high wage in relative terms for Rangers. I wouldn't be massively against not signing him and maybe saving some of that money and spending it in the forward area, and maybe going with McCrory as number one. At some point he's got to be given a chance. I know everybody's saying that he's inexperienced, but at some point in time Alan McGregor was inexperienced and we gave him his chance, and look what happened. I'm not going to say that Robbie McCrory is going to go on and have the career that Alan McGregor had, but at some point he's got to be given a chance, and I wouldn't be adverse to it being next season.
No, absolutely, Brian. Gary, as you know, we've mentioned recruitment as a big thing going forward. I think for me, and Michael Beale actually alluded to it the other day. I think actually in the midfield we're okay. I think we probably will need another one or two just to beef up a wee bit. Kamara's probably going to leave as well, so a wee bit more covering depth there. But I think we're actually okay in the midfield. Defensively, and especially up front, it needs a complete overhaul. Michael Beale keeps using this term, losing games in both boxes. So does it surprise you then that the players that we need in the most are centre halves and forwards that can score goals?
Well, actually, I had a thought on Wednesday, was that as a lot of the problems for defence coming for the confidence of the goalkeeper, that they know he won't come. And that's why we've been conceding silly goals, because Ross McCrory seems to command his box, play that wee bit higher up, and we've looked a lot more solid. As we say, was it 4 clean sheets and 5 he's had? So I think a goalkeeper that the defence, no matter who it is, can trust and have confidence in is massive for us. And that could be the best signing we make. As much as I love Alan McGregor, I think he maybe stayed on the season too long, and I think all his folks are there to see now that, as I say, he doesn't command his box, he doesn't even command his 6-yard box, and I think that must rub off onto the players. As we were talking about Barisic earlier, if you were just to take the squad that we've got now and keep Barisic in it, Goldson's not getting replaced, Tavernier's not getting replaced. So would you just be replacing one defender? The defence that we've had that's been a bit of a shambles. So that's why I think they might go with Ridvan, and I certainly think that we should get another centre half to replace Davis. I think he's or Davies. I think he's another one that we could get our money back for, move him on. It's not worked, and get somebody a bit higher quality. As for the front line, we need people that are going to contribute. We keep looking at the 55 season, and it's their only kind of successful period, really. But you had Roof, you had Itten, you had Morelos, you had Hadji, all contributing. Kent as well, all scoring goals. Look at Celtic now. You've got Maeda, Abada, Jota, Kyogo, all scoring goals. We need to get that, because at this minute, as we're saying, it's Sakala who's sorting goals. Kolak scored a few goals at the start of the season, but we need people that will do this the full season and consistently. And that's, as Bill said, it's a hard thing to do. Players like that cost money. But I'd like to think that there's been enough scouting that we've done over the last few years that there'll be enough names out there and players that will know that maybe get a couple of gems. But total priority for me has to be a solid goalkeeper and 3 attackers that's going to get the numbers that we require.
Yeah, I agree. We need to go back to that, just having numerous players that are going to contribute, and it's about finding value for money. We can, all say here that we need to sign guys at 5-10 million quid or whatever, but at the end of the day,
I didn't think the money matters.
Yeah,
I didn't think the money matters. A lot of people, you'll see it in probably your press conferences. They'll say, so what's the budget? Is it 10 million? Is it 15 million? Because they want this big number. Alfredo Morelos cost us £1 million.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like,
Tav was cost us 250,000.
250 grand. Tav, to me, it's like Joe Aribo, Bassey, that's players recently. Kamara, that's been decent players in the past. As long as we've got scouting there and can find these players, it doesn't matter about fees, but they just need to come in and perform.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely it. Right, Brian, question for you. What do Hamza Yousaf, Nicola Sturgeon, Susan Aitken and Michael Stewart have in common?
Is this a trick question?
No, it's not a trick question.
They all condemned the Rangers support after 55, and none of them condemned anything that happened last night.
Well done, Brian. You've won Rangers' first trophy this season. Well done. I did tweet about it about an hour ago. Obviously, we've seen the shambles in Glasgow Cross yesterday with opposition FC supporters or North Sea oil workers or basically describing anything that isn't saying Celtic fans. So if they're a postman, they're a postman, but they're not a Celtic fan, even if they're wearing a Celtic strip. Look, I think to get it out in the open first things first, when you have thousands upon thousands of people gathering in the middle of the street that are all fueled up with booze and possibly other things, you're going to get trouble, okay? I get that it happens, and I'm not here to try and bash on people's parades, even though, I personally don't like it happening when it's not my team doing it, but, people want to go out and celebrate. If they're having a drink, enjoying themselves, not getting up to bother, which, by the way, the vast majority obviously were. We're not here to report untruths or anything like that. But for the second year in a row now, we're seeing violence, we're seeing vandalism, we're seeing businesses shut down in the local area, and it's all bad things. And normally when bad things happen in your constituency, when bad things happen in your city and your country, the people in charge of that country will do something about it. We've seen a couple of years ago bad things happen at George Square. Maybe not to the same extent as it was happening last night, because we're now talking about people being hospitalised, and I'm sure we've all seen rumours about what's been said to have happened, and we won't go into that because at the end of the day we don't know if that's true or not. But what is true is that there have been people that are in severe conditions in hospital, which didn't happen a couple of years ago. Within hours, Brian, Nicola Sturgeon, Hamza Yousaf, Michael Stewart, Susan Aitken, the list goes on and on and on and on. I only put Michael Stewart in that because he's a wannabe SNP politician, and I'll just use any opportunity I can to bash him a wee bit. It's not the fact that Celtic fans are going out and partying that are annoying people. It's the fact that the powers that be, the usual suspects, are not calling it out. When Rangers do it, it's bad. When Celtic do it, it's good, Brian.
Yeah, it's the double standards that we've kind of seen before. It's not anything new. You know, you mentioned in terms of Yusuf there, this was a guy that when he was Justice Secretary wanted punishment for a video that wasn't even real. So, you know, that to me, that kind of says it all about kind of how Rangers are viewed in the kind of corridors of power. And I think it's just, unfortunately, the way it is now, it doesn't help when we've kind of been where we've been the last 10 years. It's difficult for Rangers as a club to have any kind of influence at that level when, you know, we've been fighting our own fires for the past decade. So I suppose that's been kind of difficult. And yeah, it wasn't a massive surprise that what happened yesterday happened. I think it was pretty predictable that obviously when fans of a football team win a trophy, the fans want to party. And as you say, when any group of people gather, you know, you can see it at Transmit or Tea in the Park, there's always going to be some kind of damage and kind of scenes that we don't like to see. And it was just as predictable that there wasn't going to be much in the way of condemnation, unlike a couple of years ago. But it's kind of difficult to say much more because I've sort of seen it all before, and it's all kind of fairly predictable.
No, as Gary, a couple of years ago, something that really wound me up about George Square, and I don't know if I've actually told anyone about this, but the stuff that happened at George Square a couple of years ago, everything was fine in George Square up until about 10 o'clock at night. People are enjoying themselves, drinking, singing, whatnot. Nothing was being damaged. Nobody was fighting. You're talking about the most minor of incidents that happened because of, as we've mentioned, people that are drinking all day and whatnot. Now, at maybe about 9:30, 9:45, one of my pals came up to me and said, "Craig, you need to get out of here." And I said, "Why?" He said, his dad's a police officer. And he said, "My dad just had a text that at 10 o'clock, we're going to come in with a riot police. And basically, it's all going to kick off." So that is what happened. Essentially, what Police Scotland allowed in George Square a couple of years ago was people to go out and drink for 10, 11, 12 hours in the street, get fueled up on booze, allow them to do whatever they wanted, and then just randomly at 10 o'clock came in with riot police. It seems like it was something that was done to wind up football fans. And I've mentioned this before, and this has got nothing to do now with like Rangers fans or Celtic fans or whoever, right? I think it's a general approach to policing within football as well here, that, in my opinion anyway, you do get police officers who will do whatever they can do to try and wind up football fans so that they will react and they will do something that then tarnishes their name and reputation. Now, I'm not here to try and say some of the stuff that happened at George Square a couple of years ago was acceptable. It absolutely wasn't. But at the end of the day, if you're allowing people to do all this stuff throughout the day, and then you come in with riot police towards tens of thousands of people who have been drinking all day, what do you expect is going to happen? Do you think they're just going to say, "Oh, I'm not, whatever"? They're not. You're going to get people that are going to fight back. And what I will say, at least for the Rangers fans, it was the police that they were fighting, and they weren't putting their own fans in hospital. I'm genuinely just sick of it, as Brian said, but it's the same thing that we speak about all the time. It's time and time again. Rangers, after what happened in George Square, published communications that they had with Police Scotland, basically showing that Rangers did everything in their power to prevent what happened happening. And Rangers could not be held liable or responsible for what happened because they followed the correct channels. You had people in positions of power and influence in Scotland who tried to suggest that Rangers were at fault for what happened. Are these same people going to say the same for Celtic the last day or so?
No, of course they're not. Probably the reason you can't find these people is because they're still hungover for yesterday.
Aye.
But listen, if Frankie told us on Wednesday, says, write down in an envelope what you think's going to happen over the next couple of days, and we'll read it out on Sunday night, everyone else would probably predict what's going to happen. And as you say, there's idiots on both sides, but Celtic fans seem to think they're untouchable because of what we've spoke about, the way things are reported. As you say, it's a guy for that side of Glasgow. He was wearing green and white hoops, football fan, rather than just saying a Celtic fan. We all joke about it, but it happens, and we know what happens, and it's at the stage now. It's normalised, and we laugh about it, and it is what it is. That's taken Celtic a long time to get people, or sound like a total conspiracy theorist saying that. There's a lot of Celtic-minded people in high positions now, and it's taken a long time for that to happen. And Celtic are reaping the benefits of that. And it's got to take people a lot smarter than me and more powerful roles than me to change that. But it is what it is. But we've just got to keep calling it out for what it is time and time again. But I dare say if we win the league next year and there's something again at George Square, I dare say we'll be sitting saying, oh, big bad Rangers.
Aye, it's always the same. I mean, Brian, Gary touched on it there, but what can we actually do to try and sort of fix this narrative? Because, I think it's kind of, there's a Rangers mentality and there's a Celtic mentality, The Rangers mentality, stiff, upper lip, get on with it, don't moan, don't complain. The Celtic mentality, moan about everything. Even if things are going your way, still moan about it. Because eventually we'll,
there's referees against them, by the way. 20-odd trophies.
Oh, no.
Referees against them.
Aye, it's the worst conspiracy ever.
Even the women's team they're against as well.
I know, and ironically, the women's team had a VAR decision go for them today as well that might have changed the game. Even though it was actually offside and, the decision was right, but, we're not going to sit here and moan about it. But it is an interesting point, Brian, because Gary mentioned it there. This is something that's happened now over a period of time, The party that's in power in Scotland haven't just came up out of nowhere. They've been in power now for 16 years, and the way the polls are going, whilst they're taking a bit of a hit now, they're probably still going to be in power come the next Scottish parliamentary elections, and it's been lurking in the background before that as well. This whole sort of stiff upper lip mentality, get on with it, it's clearly not working, and it's not worked. So do you know what we can do to try and change it? Gary says call it out every time we can. I think for us as supporters, I think that's the only thing we can do is whenever we see hypocrisy by those in power, call it out and hold these people in power to account.
I think there's two things for me that the club can do. Firstly, we need to get back to being the dominant force in Scottish football again. And I don't mean just for one season. I mean, we need to be consistently winning league titles and trophies over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. And then I think the club also need to be a bit smarter about playing the political game, about getting political operators within the club to kind of garner that influence in the corridors of power. And that only comes through time. I don't think the club can play statement wars and release a statement about anything that happened last night because effectively it was nothing to do with Rangers. So, shouting about it in public, I don't think it's going to do them any favours. I think a lot of this only changes by things that happen in the background. Effectively, in terms of how they operate, the media and how things are reported around Celtic, it's kind of similar to the position that Rangers were in the 90s when David Murray was kind of at the top of his game and he had influence with people in positions of power in the media and he was able to control the narrative a bit. And then when he lost interest, Peter Lawwell came in at Celtic and he's kind of flipped that on its head and it's been that way ever since. But for me, the first thing that needs to happen is on the park we need to get back to being the dominant force in Scottish football over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. Then we need to get smarter about playing the political game and trying to garner that kind of influence in the positions of power, and then I think you'll see things start to change, but it's not going to be a thing that happens overnight. It's something that happens over the course of 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I agree, Brian. It's a long-term game that we're going to have to play, I'm afraid.
But I also think we've got the people in the club now in terms of Bennett and Bisgrove that they're no shrinking violets. They won't lie down when Rangers fans are being unfairly treated or unfairly criminalised. I think now we've got people in positions at the club that will call this out and that will kind of work away in the background in the way they need to try and kind of solve some of this.
Gary, lastly, before we wrap up, a more general sort of point. There's been talk now, maybe, of people suggesting that, sort of mass events like this, that maybe the club should try and do something, organise something, either whether it be in a stadium, in a park. You look at Celtic, they've got Glasgow Green quite close to them. Ibrox, you've got Bellahouston Park quite close. You've got two massive outdoor sort of arenas that, the clubs could maybe hire out, kind of like a music festival or gig or a concert type thing, sell tickets and actually police it properly. Because I think, and look, at the end of the day, I think we're trying to be as fair as we can here. You're going to get a lot of people that were there yesterday and a lot of people that were there at George Square a couple of years ago, whereas don't bother going to the games and stuff like that. They just want to have an excuse to go out, do something, be a part of something and just cause trouble, because you just get people like that, unfortunately. But I think that's a decent idea, in fairness. The only thing that might make it difficult is because football's a sort of spontaneous game, do you know what I mean? Like, you can't exactly have Bellahouston Park hired out for a possible Rangers party if, it's gone to the last game of the season and you don't know what's going to happen. Sunday. Well, exactly. I suppose the last sort of 3 years that we've seen these mass gatherings happen, the league has been wrapped up in plenty of time, so, there's no excuse for it not to happen, to be honest.
It's actually something I've never ever thought of. It's quite a good idea, that. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. At the end of the day, the reason Rangers done it was because we were in the middle of lockdown and people hadn't seen each other, and it was the first time in 10 years and whatever it was. It was a load of things were in place there that made George Square happen. But it seems that Celtics now says, well, this is the norm now. Every time we win the league, we're going to have a big party in the street. But what will happen is that the powers that be will put a stop to it, because if you've seen some of the videos of the state, is it the Tron Gate and the Gala Gate and whatever, this morning, it was like something out of one of the 9/11 documentaries.
To be fair, Gary, the Gala Gate looks like that normally, so...
I'll take your word for that. It's not a place I'd go down to. As I say, it's going to get to the stage where they're just going to say, no, it's not happening, and it'll probably cause more bother when people do try and do it. So that they should maybe look at something, as you said, a bit more organised, something that can be policed a bit better. But then it would also be beneficial to the politicians and whoever, because then if it was organised by the club, then they could blame the club if there was any bother.
Aye, that's an interesting point, but we'll definitely need to wait and see what happened. And lastly, guys, before we go, Dundee United get relegated today, which is really funny. But that's us anyway, in terms of our sort of usual flagship show for the season. It's been an incredible season. I've got to say, on a personal note, I want to thank, Frankie and you guys on and everyone that's been on and listened at home. This has been my sort of first season with Gersnet, and I've been really welcomed into the community and with everybody, and it's been a great honour to come on and just talk nonsense with people for an hour most Sundays or most Fridays or what have you. Whilst this is our last official sort of flagship show in terms of reviewing games and whatnot, we will be back next Sunday for a season review, which I'm sure you'll all be delighted by at home, but it is something that we need to do. I think it'll probably be quite good. A good form of medication, maybe, to go through everything again and just see exactly where it went wrong. Colin will be hosting that, guys, so you will get to see him one last time. Hopefully it won't be the last time, hopefully he'll be coming back and certainly in some capacity next season, but in terms of official shows anyway, that'll be his last one, so you're not going to want to miss that anyway. All that's left to do then is thank my guests for coming on. Brian, thanks for coming on, mate.
Thank you. Pleasure as always.
Absolutely. And Gary, thanks for coming on, mate.
Cheers. Here to 56 next season.
Aye, let's hope so. Thanks very much for your support throughout the season, guys, and we'll see you next week for the last show. Bye-bye.